the interesting thing about influencers is they don't have to be known by anybody, but they've built a community and their voice is authentic to their community.
Okay, welcome back to the Marketing Playbook, presented by Details Interactive, Amperity, and Element. Here you'll take away 3 game-winning marketing plays every episode to take back to your team. I'm your host, Mark Friedman, and my career has been focused on direct-to-consumer marketing, direct mail, physical retail, and digital commerce. This is episode number 94, and today's guest is Kristi Daraban. Kristi is the AVP of social media at Nationwide, and she's worked in the social space for some of the most well-known brands, including NBC Universal, Disney, and Abercrombie and Fitch. She's been a trailblazer in the social media and influencer space, and she's helped large companies leverage the medium for use in customer service, marketing, connecting with consumers, and for driving revenue. We also got to talk some about how we connected and why, and how brands might want to be thinking about their recruiting processes. Before we get started, a quick thank you as always to Max Brandstetter of the Wild Business Growth Podcast for producing this episode. You can reach him at maxpodcasting.com to help bring your podcast to life. Let's open the playbook. Ready, break. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Marketing Playbook Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Kristi Daraban. Kristi is the AVP of social media at Nationwide. Currently, she oversees organic social media strategy for the enterprise, social selling, influencer marketing, associate social media advocacy, social listening, and community management. She's had experience in a variety of industries from entertainment, retail, finance, and CPG, with experience in both B2B and B2C marketing. Prior to Nationwide, she's worked at Disney, Abercrombie and Fitch, Nestle, and NBC Universal, all these household names. She has expertise in social media strategy, influencer marketing, employee advocacy, governance, brand building, and reputation management, integrated marketing, and campaign management. Kristi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Lots of experience in that bio, Kristi.
Just a 20 years worth.
Well, that's what happens when we have longevity and experience. Thank you for joining. One of the things, and we're going to get to this, we talk about the first story where people were brought up and whether there was something in their background that ultimately, might explain how they took on their career. But before we do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I came to know you. I followed you on LinkedIn, or I wasn't following you yet, but saw that you were very open and helpful in making information available to people that were looking for work. How did that come to be something that you did?
Yeah, I was getting a lot of questions seeing all these companies having mass layoffs, especially in industries that I knew, in technology, in entertainment. And I was getting these individual requests of, do you know anything? Can you help me look for something? And in my feed, being such a unique combination of industries between CPG to retail, I was getting a lot of different jobs coming across my path, and I started to save them. And instead of sending them out individually to people, I thought, why don't I just compile them and help out these mass amounts of people that are looking for jobs? I myself have been laid off. My husband's been laid off a couple of times, and it's a really scary spot to be in. So anything that could at least show people that there are opportunities and maybe make their lives a little bit easier so they don't have to search, I figured would be a great way to do that. And I find that if a job's posted in your feed, it's more likely they're actually hiring for it versus just going to the job search because someone actually is endorsing, please apply for this job. So when I was seeing them in my feed, I knew there was a higher likelihood that this actually truly was an open role.
Yeah, well, I thought you put together a great overview, a great summary of good, a combination of early stage and some more senior roles. So it was really nice of you to do. It's that and other things have prompted me to do some posting of my own, and I'd be interested to get your take on this. One of the things that's always been interesting for me is that brands, and I've spent my career, in mostly fashion, catalog, and internet brands, but how often brands don't realize how important it is to be a good recruiter, and that somebody that you're recruiting or bring through your recruiting process could very well be a customer of yours. And why leave them with a bad taste in their mouth for somebody that's a customer or could be a customer? Any thoughts around that?
Absolutely. If you look at the companies I've worked for, it's because there's some level of passion for the brand, and you have a much better time working for a brand that you do have a connection to, whether you're a customer first or become a customer. And so I think that that is very relevant. You want to make sure that you're showing up as a hiring manager as a very positive influence and really marketing the company on behalf of your hiring process, but also showing people what you're looking for and the kind of person you are to reflect that company.
Yeah, and I think all too often, and I guess I have to get on my soapbox in my opinion. I think all too often there's a lack of empathy by many that are either recruiters or talent coordinators or what have you. I hear their side of the story. We're swamped with resumes. We can't get back to everybody. But you know what? There seemingly are many companies that are larger than what some that I see that say they can't, that do figure out a way to show some empathy for people that are looking for work.
I agree with that. The term ghosting is more prominent than ever, and it's from the candidate side as well as the HR side. And I think there has to be that through communication, especially if someone's at least gotten through the process to any degree, so that they understand where they stand. Because these people are looking for jobs, these people need employment, and to just be hanging there by a thread is really frustrating, and it does leave a bad taste in your mouth.
Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox now, and we'll go back to our regular scheduled programming. So everybody, again, this is Kristi. Kristi, tell us where you grew up and how you built your career to, what was in your background that might have suggested that this is how your career would develop.
It's very interesting. I grew up in Silicon Valley before it was Silicon Valley. It was a really interesting time. I'm a first generation American. My family immigrated, my mom's side from Hungary and Serbia, and my father from Germany. He was in the army, and so he moved around to the States and Panama and back to Germany. So I was the first real family member to, from the start, get to know what it was like to be an American, and didn't have that role model. My family did jobs, any job they could, from cleaning houses to babysitting, whatever would make them some money. They didn't speak a lot of English. And I knew right away that if I wanted to break that cycle, would have to be a very determined person and take some risks. So early on, I was the kid that came home and did all my homework plus extra credit as soon as I got there, wanted to make sure that I succeeded. No one ever checked on me. I never had a curfew or anything like that. I was self-disciplined to do all of those things. And we didn't have a lot of money. So I knew going to college, I would need, first of all, college was not even an idea in my family's mind, but to go to college, I would have to self fund. And I wanted to get some scholarships, and I worked really hard at side jobs starting at age 13, getting real jobs as early as 15, and just saving up money and trying to get scholarships from singing. So I joined all these choirs and really wanted to take that experience of doing a hobby and make it a reality. And I knew that singing would not be the career that would get me anywhere financially that I wanted to go. So I thought I would go pre med. And I got into a number of colleges and decided to go to Santa Clara University, where pre med wasn't as much of a focus. Started reading through the degree book and landed on C, communication. And it kind of started there. I then worked for the college radio station. I worked in the magazine. I wanted to get different experiences in video production. So didn't have a cell phone till college, if you can believe it. And, my first laptop was in college as well. So digital was not that common to me. But through college, I was interning at a film festival, and then I also did some community service teaching computers to adults that were English second language. So I put that on my resume, and I tell this all the time to people. Sometimes putting your extracurriculars makes a lot of sense. I had my first interview at NBC Universal, and I thought, oh, for sure it's because I interned at a film festival and did marketing. And no, my boss told me it was because I knew computers. And that's where I started to carve out my career path in making digital a priority because I saw it as a white space.
So that was at NBC Universal, which is essentially your first digital role.
Yes.
And so what was your responsibility? And, now you're in this big company. Perhaps it was a different, experience for you. How did you, integrate yourself into the organization?
Yeah, it was a smaller team. We had a very unique objective of marketing the studio to filmmakers. So we were trying to get them to come use the services, use the backlot. One of the areas that really did not have a lot of attention, especially because it was newer, was do we have the right digital presence? And at that time, it meant a website. So I actually went to community college to learn how to code. I learned how to do like CSS and different web techniques so that I could upskill myself. And then I went for a grad degree at USC, and I had my thesis focused on how to use digital media to gain new audiences, specifically independent filmmakers. That was very applicable to my job. I was lucky enough to be able to present it to the president of the division. He gave me the budget to do it, which included social media, paid digital, website, email, and I had the first ever title of online marketing manager for the studio. So that's kind of where I started to pioneer, and it was like this can be a thing. It's a big enough responsibility where I really can make this a job. And I was the Jill of all trades. I did my own content, as I mentioned, coding. I was responsible for editing. I was responsible for content management and all those things. But the experience of doing everything soup to nuts really got me to be able to speak the right language and learn the right skills so that as I took on other roles, I was able to communicate either to engineers or agencies what I needed and wanted and have that right level of scrutiny so that when they were deploying either a new site or something in social media, I had the right perspective. But they didn't have degrees back then on social media or digital. So I really was learning as I went, which I thought was a really exciting place to be.
Did you find that in the studio, because this was new, that you met with resistance from people that didn't understand what your charge may have been?
I think they certainly were skeptical that this would be something that really brought a lot of return. And the way that I combated that was clearly there was very small investment at the beginning. And because the resource was a person of one, it made the test and learn environment a lot more feasible because they were much more willing to say, you can have the money to do this. And if it's just you doing the work, great. That's not a big loss on the department. But what I wanted to show was the amount of data we could get from digital that other channels just weren't providing. I mean, it was a time where it was a lot of print and we were handing out pamphlets and things like that. And so for me to be able to say we're getting enough click throughs on the website, or the ads are generating leads, or the emails are getting click throughs or phone calls, it was a whole new realm of making sure that measurement was part of our strategy. And that's where the conversation started to turn.
You took the conversation exactly where I wanted to go. Success, how did you measure success? Because people didn't really know what you could do. I would imagine they couldn't lay out for you, this is what success is going to look like. You had to pave the way to explain to them what success should be. Yes?
Yes, I think that was part of it. And because I had used my thesis, which was a year-long project to do qualitative and quantitative research, I had the research to back my recommendation too, directly from filmmakers. So I did qualitative interviews and I did quantitative surveys to see if this was even the type of media that they wanted to hear from NBC Universal. And because we were getting that feedback directly, it was integrated nicely into the strategy, and you could see the results at the end by the traffic and the engagement.
Yeah, one of the things about the show that we like to do is make sure that at the end I can wrap it up and give the listeners three key takeaways, to bring back to their personal lives or to their professional lives, and certainly, the ability to be a trendsetter, to be, a trailblazer, whatever the cliche is. You have to try not to be fearful of going in that direction. It seems like you weren't fearful.
I mean, there's always a level of fear when you're thinking about what if this is a career breaker? But in my mind, I knew it was new enough that I figured you could make some mistakes along the way. And I didn't really have anything to lose because I was early career, especially in those days. And if digital wasn't going to pan out, I could always go back to traditional marketing. But I felt like there was something there and I knew that it was growing. And while we didn't have a community like we do now, where we can meet other professionals that do like jobs, it still felt like I was on the precipice of something. And I wanted to have that role in marketing to say I was one of those people who really started to carve out what this looked like.
Thriving brands today have one thing in common. They make it a priority to understand their customers. Imperity uses AI to unify customer data and help businesses know exactly who their customers are and what they care about most. Find new customers, grow loyalty, get better return on ad spend, and manage privacy compliance. An accurate, unified customer data foundation connected with the teams and tools that need it makes everything you do with customer data work better. Build your strategy on Amperity, the platform for customer data. Learn more at amperity.com. Then you move on to Nestle, another large organization. And what was your role like there?
So there was very different because I was leading all of the ice cream brands interactive strategy, but I managed a lot of agency partners. So instead of me being a one woman show doing all the work, it was now how am I integrating with these brand management teams to recommend a digital strategy that we could execute as an omni-channel campaign. And that really was a new challenge, but really interesting one, because if you think about brands like Dreyer's Edie's Haagen-Dazs, we had two different clients. We have the end customer who's purchasing, and you have the stores that are distributing. And so really our job in digital was how are we making sure both of them are hearing us and what we stand for, because we're not selling directly from digital or web. We're just giving the right messaging and branding and information for people to love our brand and want to end up distributing or purchasing directly. So that was really interesting. I got a lot of experience working with PR and starting to integrate influencers into the work. We did launch some social channels during that time, and we got to really have fun with storytelling because ice cream is such a connector to people and really big in a lot of milestones in people's lives, that it was a natural way for us to just talk about fun and memorable times in people's lives.
As you're talking, about ice cream, I'm immediately thinking back, and you're talking about ice cream and storytelling, and I don't know why, but immediately I go back to my childhood in Brooklyn, New York. And in those days, we didn't have Haagen-Dazs and Ben and Jerry's and premium ice cream. No disrespect to Carvel, but Carvel was the ice cream that we had. My dad or my grandparents, my mom, we would walk over to the local Carvel. It was a walk up. You couldn't even go in. And, I would order a chocolate cone hand dipped with sprinkles. And so, you talk about ice cream, and immediately that's where my head went. And I imagine that the emotion that you're talking about lends itself so well to what we can do today digitally.
Absolutely. It's something that will pull at people's heartstrings. You have that as part of your celebrations. It's sometimes part of the disappointments and the heartbreak. And there's a lot of different angles from being an individual to being a family where you can bring those threads of storytelling in and just connect with people.
Yeah. So you mentioned influencers, and the influencer world has changed a lot. I mean, like most everything. But walk us through a little bit. You started early in this when influencer marketing became more prominent, and it's kind of evolved quite a bit over the last 10 years. So maybe run us through what it was like when you first started and how you envision it today or see it today.
Yeah, it really was more celebrity talent and back when influencers started. And we didn't call them that, but when you think of the function they played, I think that's really what it was when it wasn't on big TV. So we were using sports talent or TV personalities, but activating them in different ways, from having a live activation to putting some of their content and video on social, or including it in email newsletters, things like that. So it was very structured deals. It was very produced content. We weren't having them post things. It was, let's use their face and their name recognition to help the brand awareness. And so it was very one sided at the beginning. I know you're probably going to ask me this, but moving to my next role at Disney, there's now built-in natural talent. We had influencers as part of our shows, and they were posting and we were posting, and everything was about those TV celebrities, those kids. So it was a very strong evolution, even from the time at Nestle to there, where we were wanting these kids to post and be involved in all of our social channels and chatter and be part of the story as well. And finding out who they were behind the camera started to become a level of storytelling that we hadn't really explored before. Disney's not a place that likes to pull back the curtain too much, but we were realizing that connection to these talent was something people really wanted. They wanted to know who they were and what they were like outside of the silver screen.
And in influencer marketing today, there's pros, obviously. There's some cons. There are those that argue it's not genuine, marketing. Thought?
I think that it is absolutely genuine marketing. In fact, the interesting thing about influencers is they don't have to be known by anybody, but they've built a community, and their voice is authentic to their community, unless they're the influencers that are just pay to play. But they have a lifestyle that people have for some reason connected to and relate to or aspire to. And they're essentially millions of small distribution channels. And if you use it in the right way, they can show up in your content, you can show up in theirs, but it becomes more of a conversation than ever before instead of just an impression.
So you mentioned you went to Disney. As I think I said to you when we were prepping, I don't know a company that's got more assets to be able to leverage for social media than something like Disney. So what was that experience like?
I was hired to convince the leadership team that there was a reason to be on social media for Disney Channel's three TV networks. So there's Disney Channel, which everyone knows, Disney XD, which was a little bit more edgy, and Disney Junior for the younger audience. And they hadn't really explored if it made sense because of the TV viewing audience age to use something like social media as a marketing tool. And so I spent months coming up with a strategy of recommendation, doing research, and making sure that there was governance and comfort around what this could look like. And at the end of the day, we not only got the support from parents as a general audience, but also as a endorsement that they're most comfortable with content coming from Disney that their kids would see than anyone else. And so that's where we really started to say this is certainly viable, and it snowballed. I had one other person on my team. We did everything in house, and we launched Facebook pages, we launched Twitter, we launched Tumblr, we launched YouTube. We just started launching all these channels, and they were growing organically like madness. Then we started to integrate even more. We had a restructure. I reported directly to the CMO, and we did things like integrate hashtags on air for the first time. So now we were becoming part of the shows, and we were encouraging this chatter, and we evolved it so that every premiere we had a live Twitter chat or a Snapchat experience with our talent. They were loving to get together with the fans. They wanted to talk about the movie or the show that we were launching. We started to bring them on Disney cruises to have some integrated synergy experiences, and we would document the whole thing on social through their eyes. And then we were using talent to talk about the channels and the shows, and we would give them some little sneak peeks that they could reveal for us. So they became a little bit of the marketing tools as well. But to go from almost nothing to that in my 4.5 years, it was an incredible experience. And yes, lots of assets, but surprisingly, especially on something like a TV network, mining those assets can be the challenging part.
And how did you go from think about this from a budgetary perspective? When you're a performance marketer, although attribution becomes, an issue, you spend a dollar, you're going to get some return depending upon how you measure it. In social media, unless it's paid social and you're paying to activate it in Meta, it's a lot more difficult, I think, to get the sense whether there's return on the time and the investment.
Yeah, especially because what we were trying to drive was viewership. And there really wasn't a connection point on reporting social engagement to viewership. Where we were able to see connections were during show premieres, as I mentioned, we would trend in Twitter. We would see the engagement spike. We would see the chatter spike. Social listening tools were getting more advanced, and it started to be able to show us that we were having those collaborations of being able to connect the dots, that chatter was resonating during live show times. There was that upper funnel connection that we were hoping for. It wasn't maybe a Nielsen stat, but it was at least showing us that people were connecting with the shows offline as well as online, and having that second screen experience where they were talking about the shows and the movies as they were airing.
Somebody that's come up in social media and helped to develop what social media is, in everything that we do there's a pro and a con, all right, or pros and cons. How do you kind of think about social media and perhaps some of the negatives of social media?
The negatives tend to be that people have a lot more courage to write things that I think they wouldn't say in reality. And at every brand that I've worked at, there's a different challenge. Disney being, are they saying something negative about the kids? Is it considered bullying? Brand like Nationwide, are they airing their grievances for the public to see, and we're trying to help them, but they're not wanting to respond? So every role that I've had, it's really the negativity that can come with social media. And pro and con, the transparency. I think people want to be able to be heard and seen. I've never been of the mindset that you should be hiding comments regardless, unless it's pure blatant rule breaking, but to at least show that as a brand, you're reacting to those comments. But it can be really challenging, especially when it gets into the political realm, the DEI realm, and people are saying things that are truly hurtful. And you have a team of community managers, let's say, that are reading every single comment and have to internalize that as they're responding. That's where it gets really, really challenging.
Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, they've helped 13 of their customers get acquired, with one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd recently. Plus, they were ranked as the 12th fastest growing agency in the world by Adweek. If you're an e-commerce business that needs help scaling your ads profitably, check them out at element.com, spelled ELUMYNT.com. I want to talk about your current role in a minute, but in between Disney and your current role, you spent some time in a fashion business, Abercrombie and Fitch, and that demographic, at least in my mind, not any more or any less than the other companies you were in, I guess, but that's a sweet spot of social media hotbed. So how did you leverage that? This was right in their target, right in their wheelhouse.
So they have 3 brands, and I was head of social for all those brands, and Hollister was one of them. And I mean, talk about the demographic for social, the high school population and college age. It was highly engaging, very frequent interactions. Retail was a lot more willing to move quickly, take risks, innovate. We were one of the first brands to do a Snapchat lens. I took talent, also known as models in the retail business, to Coachella, and we documented Coachella through the eyes of the models, showcasing the style and the lifestyle together. And it really evolved into creating a narrative rather than just showing what the clothing was or the accessories, but how it came to life in a real way, whether it be through influencers or through models and talent, but connecting it to when and where you would wear these things, and very aspirational. That demographic really wants to look up to these brands and see how cool it is, for lack of a better term. Abercrombie, the reason I went to work there is they were in their rebranding moment. They wanted to be more inclusive. They wanted to showcase that they could be more diverse, and really talk about the brand in a different way, which appealed to me. And one of the really unique things we did is we deleted every post on social media that they had ever done before. So we wiped clean the slate. And as the new creative director at the time came on, we just started fresh and had a whole new outlook on what social could be. And a lot of it was they cast real people as models. We hired a lot of influencers. We were sending out product to people and getting people posting about it. And it slowly built back up that people were excited again about the authenticity and transparency of the brand, but also the realness of it.
Interesting. Okay. And then a move to Nationwide. So I'm a customer. Many people probably don't know Nationwide, but tell us what that business is and your role in the company.
It's going to seem like a total pendulum swing from the rest of my career. But we are a insurance and financial services company. We are a company that will insure your home, your auto, your business. But we also do retirement solutions, annuities, life insurance, pet insurance. Very unique, very highly regulated industry that I was unfamiliar with. But what they were looking for when they hired me was someone to come in with the social expertise that could bring some storytelling to the brand in a way that they hadn't done before. When I arrived, they were still kind of posting and talking to the audience instead of with them. And our community was highly focused on some sports partnerships and product. So my job was to reformat the strategy and talk about building a persona and coming up with content pillars and themes that would really, we had permission to be in, and that would resonate with the brand and our values, and open up the conversation about Nationwide as a company versus just as products.
And in an organization like that, where do you report up into?
So our marketing team has 6 leaders that report up to a CMO. One of them is my leader, who's the senior vice president of content and delivery. My team is peers with the media team, our creative team, and our digital team. So we're kind of the the drivers and the center of excellence of all the content that's created here and how it's being distributed. We're also strategic partners to our marketing managers, which are essentially the brand managers for the products, and help them come up with the ways to bring campaigns to life through all those channels.
And your audience or your customer are a legion of brokers or end consumers or a combination of both?
I would consider it both. We do look at distribution through agents for our insurance, and then from financial services perspective, your financial advisors of the world. Yet, from an enterprise level, we are looking to target the customer at various stages because life events are where we're starting to target people if you think about the type of businesses we have. And it is, are you buying a house, a car? Are you getting married? Are you having a baby? Are you starting to think about retirement? All those stages, which span quite an age range of individuals, are where we want to hit with messaging. So we are on channels from TikTok to LinkedIn and Facebook.
And as you think about what you have seen and where we go from here in leveraging social media platforms that are coming on, obviously TikTok is a major presence for many. There are some political issues, seemingly. You have a point of view on what's been going on. We're recording here, March 21st, 2024, and it's been in the news lately. Some folks in the U.S. would like to see TikTok banned.
Yeah, I think it's been a year of a lot of conversation around what's going to happen with TikTok. We actually launched last year at the Super Bowl, despite the chatter and the nervousness around data and privacy. And it's been really successful for us as a brand. And we have had to create a whole new content strategy and video production engine to supply TikTok. Not that it's not able to be distributed in other places, but it is a platform that we're seeing a lot of attention, eyeballs, and engagement. We have a community here that we pull together for points of view, and it's our cross section between legal and our compliance team, our PR team, our social team, and we constantly are analyzing what information we have and providing recommendations to the C-suite based on that information. So at this time, we're still hopeful that TikTok will remain. And I think TikTok wants to remain in the US. So we'll see. And I think, like any good marketer, we're ready to pivot should we need to, but it's done what we needed it to do for now.
Yeah, it's amazing. Maybe I sound a little antiquated, but it's just amazing to me, a company like Nationwide selling insurance and leveraging life stage events for consumers, and how seemingly adept and bought into social media as a way of communicating with their customers and potential customers.
Yeah.
We are down to the end of our show. Thank you, Kristi. We do this 2-minute drill. 7 questions, 1-word answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
A brand that you admire or that inspires you.
Disney.
Favorite app on your phone.
Peloton.
Last website other than Amazon that you shopped from.
Target.
Something that you're not good at but wish that you were.
Being spontaneous.
Charitable organization that you're passionate about.
It's called Freedom a la carte.
What does Freedom a la carte do?
They support women who have been either in sex trafficking or domestic abuse, and they upskill them so that they can be hired in the workforce. They give them rehabilitation, and they do mentoring and coaching for them as well. But they have actual cafes that these women can work in to give them a next brighter future here out of Columbus.
If you had one superpower, what would it be?
I would say manipulating time.
Time travel. That's one comes up pretty often. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Other than family, what's your most prized possession?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to go with my wedding ring.
Okay, that's a nice one. I haven't heard that one before.
Oh.
That's a very good one. And I would imagine in the role that you play, when I ask you now where people can reach out to you on social media, you're going to have an answer for me.
Definitely. Best place is going to be LinkedIn. I post on there a lot. I'm very active, and it's a place that I get the most interesting content and relevant content for my profession. So I would suggest following me there.
Well, that's great. Kristi, thank you so much for agreeing to join me today. Also, thanks for the work that you're doing to help people that are looking for a new opportunity. As we started the show, that's great work that you're doing, and I wish more people were willing to give of their time like you did. So, great job.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
That's it. Today's game ball goes to Kristi Daraban for coming on the marketing playbook. To me, today's three game winning marketing plays were as follows. Number one, so often you hear people speaking about how they were recruiting for a role with a company, they had a few interviews, and then nothing happens, not even a rejection. Brands should be spending more time on recruiting, making certain that they understand that people they meet for interviews could be their customers. Why wouldn't you want to treat your customers with respect? The recruiting process should be treated the same way as any other touch point with a customer. Number two, being the trailblazer is not always easy, but it can be fun and very rewarding. Kristi spoke about her early days in the social media space and how she was able to craft roles to suit her and the perceived needs of the business. You cannot be fearful, be focused and persistent, and you'll be successful. And number three, social media is such a wide ranging tool for brands today, and it will continue to be critically important. You see how brands use their social media platforms to connect with customers to drive revenue, resolve customer service issues, or simply to help extend the brand DNA. It can be extremely helpful, but comes with some negatives as well: overexposure or giving a voice to people who do not have the brand's best interests at heart. So brands need to constantly monitor their channels. It's interesting how many brands I see using social in only one direction, from the customer to them. Thank you, Playbook marketers, for listening to another episode. If you want to check out more pages of the Marketing Playbook, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast spot and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, the devil is in the details.